how should the Christian feel and react towards the mandatory vaccine regulations that are being proposed in today's world? Let's talk about that as we watch your culture straight further every day. Howdy, Jonathan Fiala here, sitting in the chair of theology. To my left, I got Justin. How's it going?
Oh, hello. It's going good. Going good. Sitting in, I believe, the chair of philosophy.
That you are?
Okay.
Looks really good. It's a good chair on you.
It's because it's the one that fits me.
Well, okay, that's another subject for another day. Yeah, moving on, body positivity. This chair of culture, Steve, how's it going?
Yes, sir. Doing very well. I think I'm doing better than Murray over there.
People on audio can't see what you're doing with the beep bop boop.
No, it's kind of like doing the up and down with my hands and kind of.
Well, I don't know. Because we're
sitting running man.
Yes, running man.
We're joined by Murray in the fourth chair of politics. How's it going, Murray? Well, no, that's Steve Murray's not saying anything.
Yeah, somebody's got to talk for him.
No, I think it's good because politics is dead. It's just all culture wars now.
I'll speak for him.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. So let's go ahead and talk about it. But before we do, I do want to set the table. Mr. Producer, could you go ahead and bring up that Ian Miles Chong tweet on it's the first one. Perfect. Go ahead and roll this because this is actually a provocateur in Canada named Mark Slepansky, and he did this a couple of years ago, but it resurfaced recently, and it's kind of the spark for our topic today. Go ahead and roll it.
We've had a big problem with anti-vaxxers, and I have a solution to the anti-vaxxer question. And some might even say the final solution to the anti-vaxxer question. Here's what we're going to do. Just to start, we're going to take little stickers and we're going to put them on the houses of all the unvaccinated people, just so people know who they are and where they live. And if that doesn't work, what we're going to do is take all the unvaccinated people, put them on cattle cars, and ship them off to work camps. Nice, big, powerful work camps, either in Northern Ontario or in Quebec. And here's how this is going to work. We're going to force them to work, free labor, get them to build us stuff, and segregate them. So it's killing multiple birds with one stone. Not only are we taking these dirty, disgusting, unvaccinated people and removing them from society, but we're also using them to work for us. And we can even loot them and use their assets to fund other parts of society.
So
now, the way this will...
He goes on, and you would think that this is a Babylon Bee article, or that it was satire. And he says it's satire. But he's also a political conservative, so-called political conservative, self-proclaimed, who says that, well, I mean, I don't have any actual bad feelings towards people who are anti-vax.
He sounds kind of Hitlerization kind of person there with
that's the
that
joke.
Kind of idea for being a jokester.
I mean, that is the joke. He's invoking the Holocaust and he's invoking Hitler, where he says, "I'll try this one more time. I don't hate unvaccinated people. Quite frankly, I don't think someone's decision to get vaccinated or not defines them as an individual. Last year, I made 2 videos that I had some strong words for unvaccinated Canadians. In retrospect, my words were overly harsh. While they were meant to be satirical, I realized that I went too far and upset a lot of people. I apologize for that. Moving forward, I will do better." Well, it would be like me if I was a Westboro Baptist Christian saying, all the gays are gonna burn. Wait a minute. You say you believe that, so that's not satire. That's you saying something egregious, and then saying, "Oh, but I was joking."
Yeah, saying what you believe in a joking manner
is not
just
satire.
so you can get away with saying, "Oh, I was joking." Doesn't count as a joke. That's called what? What was that? It's called manipulation. Is what it is.
Correct.
So I mean, the guy. Why would you joke like that? Like, you have a public platform. Okay, hear me out here. You have a public platform. You know you have a public platform. Okay. Why are you throwing satire like that out there? You're throwing it out for 2 reasons. 1, you're trying to make a very powerful point. Or 2, you trying to get the attention. The point he was making here was not a powerful point. He was not trying to say this is satire because look what is happening. He wasn't fighting against this. He wasn't making a point. Because he goes back, he goes, well, no, that's not what I meant. I love all the unvaccinated people. I don't think it should matter. But he never goes, this was about this or this. So he's not making a point. So now he's just looking for attention at the expense of making others who are watching his platform believe this.
Yeah. And so he's just active at this point. He's backtracking.
Oh, 100%.
Because he thought it's very much the same clapter comedy that you get out of all of your late night shows nowadays, where they say, conservatives, they're stupid, am I right? And everyone laughs, right? That's what he was expecting to get out of his base. That laughter, that clapter of everyone kind of laughing and clapping.
Clapter. I like that.
Yeah, it's not mine. I stole it, but I think it is good. He's looking for that clapter type thing, and it's not. It didn't land, and so now he's having to backtrack. So let's see what some of those people actually are complaining about, because again, this is an apologetics podcast. We're going to get to the apologetics part, but part of it is understanding both sides of the issue. So one side is saying that the vaccines are efficacious and that it's very, very critical, that we absolutely must do it because you are saving grandma and yourself from long COVID, and all of these things are very nice. So that's one side. The other side says the vaccines don't work well. Well, I would actually like to play a little clip from one of those sides, and it's the Rumble clip.
So now we have two vaccines that are really quite effective. The mRNA vaccine, highly effective, extraordinarily efficacious, 94 to 95% for mild to moderate disease, and virtually 100% efficacious, because the real world effectiveness is even more impressive than the results of the clinical trial.
No hospitalizations, no deaths, vaccines are safe, Pfizer, biotech, highly effective, 100% efficacy is what we're seeing here on the bit. 100% vaccine effectiveness. See if you can turn the volume down on the Rumble itself. 100% effective. Turn down a half, please. Even lower. 96%, 95%, 94%. These are different headlines, and we're watching it over the course of weeks and months. It go from 100% to 85%, 83%, 81%.
Oh, we're in the 70s now. 75, 74. Woo, this is like watching the countdown.
70%, 69%.
Oh, we're in the 60s. 50s.
Effective. 2, 40%, 39%, 20%.
You might need another shot. We've got to make sure we clarify that with people. It has nothing to do whether or not it's effective. We know it's highly effective.
I forgot about that.
Highly effective.
That was a loud video. Man.
That was a loud video. So what I want to point to here is we see that slide of 100% down to sub 20% effective. When somebody's sub 20% effective, in statistics, we call that
ineffective.
Not effective.
That is ineffective.
It is so low. It is so low that it is not even. It's not worth the effort. Once you get below 50%, it is a shot in the dark as to whether or not it's effective.
So in the medical world, below 50% is not actually considered ineffective.
I know what you're saying.
But I believe that if it's below 33%.
For vaccination, though, once it gets below 50%, there's now a question as to whether or not it's effective at all. Because when you're talking about a treatment I agree with you. I agree with you.
Now, and then they're also talking about that it's okay for babies that are 6 months and younger.
And that's a whole nother podcast.
You know, I mean,
that's a whole nother podcast.
I've grown up playing devil's advocate in my life. My
for it.
father always is like, let's play devil's advocate. He may completely agree with my decision, but man, is he going to try and talk me out of it? Because if I can't hold my ground on that decision, then maybe I shouldn't make that decision.
Correct.
Right? So when I'm watching that, what I'm hearing in my head with conversations with coworkers is going to be, well, those are the different variants. That's how variants work. Is your vaccine's going to become less effective against them because they're not evolving,
changing.
What is that word? Mutating.
Yeah.
In order to
Evolving strain
withstand.
is not wrong, though.
I think that's what happened to Murray over here.
Yeah, Murray went through the ringer, man.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
We can't say for sure. We haven't had clinical
He
trials
must
on
have got
Murray.
one of those 20%ers, I guess.
Yeah. But it evolves. It evolves. Gosh, my words.
It
In order,
mutates.
so the argument is always, well, that's going to happen. That's expected.
Yeah.
The difference is if you read a lot of these article titles, and when you look at what they were saying with the booster shots, is they were saying this helps against this. This has been altered to help against this.
Correct, against
that
Delta.
was one of the reasons when boosters came out, they first said, well, you need the booster because it's basically updated to help with the new variants. Then they're like, well, it just doesn't last 6 months because it's our first time doing this. I have coworkers who have gotten the booster 6 or 7 times.
You know, what I find interesting is that
Hard pass
this
for me.
thing, COVID, the variants are evolving like every, 6 months or 3 months?
But that's the common flu and the common cold. That's how it's a very similar.
that's
Coronavirus
But
is
the
a
flu,
normal.
it does that, once a year they update it?
No,
They get you
well,
to do it.
No,
They have
they-
you take a shot once a year.
But you'll get influenza A and B in the same year,
Yeah.
and so that they're both Yeah.
But
once
you're
a
right
year
about the
instead of every 3 months.
Yeah, you're right about the output volume of how often they're saying you need this vaccine. The flu, even if a new flu strain comes out, it's still once a year, and they aren't creating a new vaccine for every flu strain that comes out, but they are with COVID.
It's because there actually is a concern whenever you're injecting something like that into your body. There is a concern. I don't care who you're talking about, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. That much of a schedule of anything is concerning. Like, we should be looking at that very carefully, what you're putting in your body, especially if you're pregnant and people are losing their pregnancies right after. Guys, we tell ladies like not to eat shellfish or stuff like that, right? Like when they're pregnant.
Bro, forget about being pregnant. I'm never going to be pregnant. I may look it, but I won't be it. Okay?
That's
But
not what they say. That's,
yeah, but look
that's
at
not
the
what I
food.
heard.
How many times do we have, I remember back in the day, there was a big push about corn syrup is evil. Corn syrup is bad. And we were like, corn syrup's in everything. This cannot be good for you. And we got all up in arms about putting corn syrup in our body.
Yeah.
And now we're like, yeah, inject me every 3 to 6 months with
With the mRNA vaccine.
something.
And so to Steve's point, I actually want to pull up a tweet. Again, this is from Colin Rugg on Twitter, and he actually linked the Senate hearing between Senator Rand Paul and Dr. Fauci. And so I want to pull that up. Go ahead and do the Twitter capture. Yeah, there you go. Twitter. There you go. Yep. And go ahead and roll that, Mr. Producer. I think it's interesting.
Here's what I want to know. It's not just about you. Everybody on the vaccine committee, have any of them ever received money from the people who make vaccines? Can you tell me that? Can you tell me if anybody on the vaccine approval committees ever received any money from people who make the vaccines?
Soundbite number one, are you going to let me answer a question? Okay, so let me give you some information. First of all, according to the regulations, people who receive royalties are not required to divulge them even on their financial statement, according to the Bayh-Dole Act.
So
Here's what I want to know. It's not just about...
So that's on repeat. Thank you, Mr. Producer. I I think he just answered your question.
Welcome.
Good job. Well played, sir. So we have 58 vaccine royalty payments made to Fauci and to Collins. So that's interesting. It's almost like there was an incentive to roll this out early and as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So just laying that out there for those who are still heavily pro vaccine. And again, I want to lay this out because there's two sides to every argument, and there's a right and a wrong, and sometimes neither side is right. Okay, that is possible.
That's possible,
right?
yes.
But I actually want to go a step further, and I want to go to Pfizer. From the horse's mouth in Australia. They're in a parliamentary hearing in Australia. Mr. Producer, if you can pull that up. I'm going to pull up the video, scroll down and get the video ready. But I'm going to read this from Project Veritas. Yes. This is from Project Veritas. They've highlighted out some of the notes from the Pfizer confidential letter that they were able to obtain. Since April 2021, increased cases of myocarditis and pericarditis have been reported in the United States after mRNA COVID-19 vaccination, particularly in adolescents and young adults. The pattern of cases conforms, as per the label, to a pattern of myocarditis cases occurring in a majority of young males between 29 years of age within the first 2 weeks post-vaccination. You can go further, guys, and links in the description as always. But when this is brought to the attention of the Pfizer folks in the Australian Parliament, this is what occurred, Mr. Producer.
That's why the vaccine causes myocarditis and pericarditis.
Why does it cause? Yes.
I'll take that, Dr. Hewitt. Sure. Based on our clinical trials and pharmacovigilance data, as well as real-world evidence following the distribution now of billions of doses of vaccine, we retain confidence, strong confidence in the safety profile of the vaccine.
Sorry, Chair, point of order. I've asked, do you understand why it causes, I know that it's a low risk, I'm asking, do you understand why it causes myocarditis? I want you to explain to me why it causes myocarditis. Do you understand why it causes myocarditis?
Pfizer is aware of very rare reports of myocarditis and pericarditis that have been temporarily associated with vaccination.
Well, that's still ongoing for some people.
Senator Reddick, Dr. Through should answer the question. Thank you, Dr. Through.
According to public health experts and regulatory authorities around the globe, the number of reports of myocarditis remains small.
I'm not referring to the number of reports. I want you to explain to me the mechanism of how the vaccine causes myocarditis. Do you or do you not understand the mechanism of why the vaccine causes myocarditis? It looks to me like you don't. And if you don't understand it, why are you saying the vaccine is safe without qualifying the risks?
So,
good question.
Senator Reddick, I think Dr. Through is actually about to get to that point. Whether people agree, whether there's agreement to his evidence or not, is another question for others to make a judgment on. But if Dr. Through, if you could again get to Senator Reddick's question.
Senator, all medicines, all therapeutic products and vaccines have benefits and have side effects as well. Looking at the totality of the evidence for Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine, regulatory authorities, health authorities, experts globally, including in Australia within the Department of Health and the TGA, have maintained that the benefit-risk ratio...
That's not the question that I asked. I asked, can you explain why the vaccine causes myocarditis? Yes or no?
Doesn't sound like
Senator,
he
the
does.
benefit-risk
yes
profile...
or no? So you clearly don't understand the pathway, do you? Because you can't explain it. I'm not referring to the cost-benefit analysis here. I'm referring to, do you understand the biochemical pathway as to why the vaccine causes damage to the heart?
Senator, I'm happy to take your question on notice and come back to the committee with whatever information we can provide. I might just clarify, I was not referring to a cost-benefit analysis in my previous response. I was referring to the benefit-risk ratio, and health authorities around the globe continue to recommend the benefits.
take a long walk off a short pier.
He has no idea. They have no idea.
They don't know. Well, so either they don't know, or they don't want to say. Neither one of those is good. When you're in a position where it's rotten eggs or rotten fish behind the underneath the cap of the food that they're serving you, I don't want to be served that. Either they do know and they are intentionally doing it, says the tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, or they don't know what they're doing and they rolled this out way too fast, and people are suffering for it. But they did roll out literally billions with a B vaccine dose.
Well, and do you remember when it rolled out? Do you remember? I remember it like it was yesterday. It all started 4 years ago when, but
basically
you have a flashback scene right there. Okay. Perfect. But I remember when it was coming out, we were having conversations at work about, it keeps not getting approved. It keeps not getting approved. It was literally months of not being approved. And everyone said, like, when will this be approved? We want to go back to work. We want to leave our house. Yeah. We want to go to a grocery store. Right? And everyone was begging, let's get this approved. Why can't they make one that works? Right? Moderna, unapproved. Pfizer, unapproved. Pfizer, all of a sudden approved within a week?
Yep.
There was a week where Pfizer was unapproved and then came back was approved. And we're like, what happened? Why? There's no way they changed it in that 1 week and did the tests necessary in that 1 week. Now, is it possible they had multiple things they were testing? Yes. Okay. But that sure sounds a whole lot more like money changing hands. Mm-hmm. Because all of a sudden, Pfizer's became perfectly safe. Johnson & Johnson's was, no way, Jose. Moderna was, well, it's basically the same as Pfizer, but it's not approved yet. How long did it take Moderna to get approved? And how much deeper is Pfizer's pockets than Moderna?
Pfizer seems like they paid more money.
Those are all really good questions, but all of them come from the root patent. And again, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole because, again, I want to get to what should the Christian think about this. But we're trying to equip you, dear viewer and listener, with the information so that you have a response, because it is interesting. It is interesting. So, what are we saying? Are we saying don't take the mRNA vaccine and just die? Well, we are offering another option. We are offering another option, contrary to what this
Jesus is your only option.
Okay. That's what we call a logical fallacy, because this is like, if you have 6 pounds of rice, how many ants are there in China? Answer me now, dang it. There's a problem here. Okay. However, there are other alternatives, and as early as June or July of 2020, do y'all remember there was a drug that's been used for 100 years?
Cocaine.
That's not the one I was talking about, but that's been used for longer, actually. The coca is a lot longer than that. But there's a drug that's been around for 100 years or so. It's been used for deworming and for stopping the spread and proliferation of viruses. Something called Ivermectin.
Yes. And
they tried it on patients. By the way, I'm not making medical claims. I'm not giving you medical advice. My Uncle Jim, who's an RN in LA, has worked with people. He's like taking people off ventilators, giving them ivermectin and budesonide for the symptoms, ivermectin for stopping the replication. He's had stage 4 cancer patients come back and say, my cancer is in remission. Ivermectin is a really cool thing. So there's some studies that they're going to want to start to do based on that. I'm not saying it does like cancer, but there's a lot of weird stuff where he's had like 6 patients who were stage 3, stage 4 that came back, and they came back with a positive outcome on their cancer. Ivermectin is a wonder drug, and yet it's been absolutely I hate using the word suppressed. It eats me to say it.
Suppressed.
Because we need that on the soundboard. Suppressed. In all bass tones. Just give me a thumbs up. But just now, finally, the FDA is saying that well, a doctor can prescribe whatever they want. I'll tell you my story. I've told it here on this show before. When I had COVID the first time, 10 days, I was misdiagnosed and I got really sick. I lost 20 pounds in 10 days. I had 104 fever. I went to the doctor. He gave me over-the-counter Ivermectin. Within 12 hours, I was down to about 100 fever. It was pretty awesome. It saved my frickin' life. 2 weeks later, I went to the same doctor with my dad for his COVID. He would not prescribe Ivermectin because he was going to lose his license.
Oh, I was going to say, could it be an age thing?
No, because he was going to lose his license. They just now have revoked that. But in the meantime, I got COVID again. They wouldn't give me Ivermectin. You know what I did?
You went and found it on the streets of Houston.
I went to the feed store.
Went to the black market.
I literally had the horse
feed
paste.
store, the black market of medicines.
You know what? I literally got don't do this. This is very bad. I told you, do not go and eat the horse paste.
Please do not do anything you see on this podcast at home.
But the horse paste saved my life, and the apple flavored was delicious. Well, it was less horrid than the other one. It was still horrid, actually. But yeah, they make an apple for the horses exactly like that. So anyway, within 12 hours, so first 24 hours, I'm like, okay, I've got COVID. I'm feeling all the symptoms. I'm getting pneumonia. My lungs are filling with fluid. 12 hours later, after taking it, I'm on the mend.
The only side effect, his throat felt a little hoarse.
You know what's interesting? Is when doctors were not able to prescribe it, the horse paste was disappearing from
the
feed stores.
So, there are side effects to it. Do not take ivermectin unless you need it. Ocular distortion.
Here's our legal disclaimer: we are not doctors. Please consult your medical professional before taking any sort of drugs.
Please do. So with that said, we're not advising you to do anything like that. However, what I would say is that there are side effects if you ever are taking ivermectin. It's like a serious migraine, not with the headache, but with the eyes. Like your vision changes, your pupils dilate like crazy. It was not fun. It's not a fun thing to do, but it was definitely a lot more fun than sitting in the bed like sweating out fat and muscle.
Yes.
Do you know the last part of Murray to die was his eyes because your pupils dilate?
Oh man.
Yeah. Okay. So
this is why you keep me around.
With that said, what? So there are options that you can try if you want to try something that's actually more effective than 20%. I can almost guarantee you, ivermectin is probably going to be more than 20% effective on some level. It's going to have an effect. But
So one thing that I'm sure we'll talk about is the idea of not putting stuff in your body that you don't know, right? It kind of came up earlier. The ibuprofen.
Ivermectin.
That's what I said. I don't know what's in it. What are the side effects of it? Because you keep talking about this miracle drug, but there's got to be side effects.
Yeah, so dilated pupils. You can, especially if you take way too much of it, you can get heart palpitations. You can get a few other things. Like it's not unlike Tylenol. In fact, I think it's probably safer than Tylenol as far as side effects.
It helps get rid of intestinal worms.
So it stops the replication of cells that are not nice in your body. So I wouldn't take it for a long period of time. It could probably inhibit other things that you need. However, for the most part, I've heard of people like having an adverse reaction in their intestines, having irritation in the lining and some bleeding. I've heard of that. Oof. Okay. So those sort of things can happen, especially in some select cases. Talk to your doctor. But for the most part, pretty dang benign. Dang benign.
They used it in Africa to get rid of eye worms.
Correct. It's been used for years and years and years. In
Yes.
fact, when all these journalists were saying, don't take the horse paste, it's like, guys, we've been deworming people coming across our border for years with ivermectin. It's considered one of the more benign drugs out there. There are side effects. They do happen, but it's so freaking rare. Yeah. And even those side effects, most of them are very moderate. It's more benign than hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hydroxychloroquine.
Bingo for the YouTube ban. Okay. Hydroxychloroquine. Bing.
Bing, bing,
Let us know, dear YouTube.
It's the same thing. That's what.
Dear YouTube censor, when you have hit your bingo card.
That's what Trump took.
Yeah. He took a lot of things. He took monoclonal. He took ivermectin. He took hydroxychloroquine.
Took some documents.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh.
That's in the podcast.
Monoclonal antibodies, wasn't it?
I'm on a roll today.
But so here's another one. So go ahead and pull up this NCBI study, please, Mr. Producer. But something else has been shown with the vaccine is, okay, you ready for this? Multibacillary leprosy unmasked by COVID-19 vaccination. It'll be the next one. Leprosy is a chronic disfiguring infectious disease. It is traditionally classified into either tuberculoid leprosy or lepromatosis, multibacillary leprosy, which differ in a number of bacteria present in the skin and clinical manifestations. Patients between the two types are classified as borderline. In the context of COVID-19 pandemic, patients with leprosy will also receive COVID-19 vaccinations. Here we describe multibacterial leprosy unmasked by COVID-19 vaccinations. So, thank you, Mr. Producer. A lot of people are saying that it causes leprosy. No, it doesn't cause leprosy that we know of yet. Okay, that's not that has not been proven. But what the suspect mechanism is here, unlike what the Pfizer guys can say, the suspect mechanism here is that the body, today, you have streptococci, flesh-eating bacteria, and MRSA in your bodies.
I think
today,
that's
right?
what happened to Murray. I ate all of his flesh, didn't it?
You guys both,
from...
have those in your body right now. You guys know that, right?
Yes.
Some people have leprosy, latent leprosy, just like flesh-eating bacteria, just like MRSA.
You don't know me.
Some of these people, no, I don't. That's why don't bite me. A human bite is just as dangerous as an animal bite in some cases. If it pierces the skin.
Usually worse.
If it pierces the skin. So
many jokes I want to say.
I know. Don't bite me.
YouTube censors.
Yeah. So anyway, if you have some of these underlying conditions, some of these will pop out because what is the mRNA doing? It is restructuring your immune system. It's re-instructing it on how to perform and how to behave with certain strains and viruses.
Yeah, so they taught this when they taught about AIDS in 5th grade. Yeah. I remember that they taught about this, and one of the videos I remember watching is they're like, your whole body, your white blood cells are like the guards of your body, and your body's a prison, basically. What happens is there are good things in it that get to roam around the prison freely. The guards, the warden, whatever you want to call those. And then there are bad things that get pushed into a cell, right? And they're locked away and they're controlled. Okay? Those controlled things don't get to run wild. Those controlled diseases in your body are free to be in your body, but they don't get to multiply. They don't get to, present themselves. Well, what happens when you take this mRNA, I am not wording today.
That sounds.
But what happens is it basically reassigns those guards, and it can reassign them improperly, and all of a sudden the leprosy can now get out and can manifest.
Correct.
Right. So it's not that it is causing it, but it's letting it run wild.
Correct. And it's destroying their system. So, and again, links in the description as always below. There are people, especially in India, there was a few case studies where there are people who probably would have gone their whole lives with no problem, and now they're leprous. And so...
And that's not great in India. If you don't know how India works, they have a class structure.
It's bad news.
It's you get to be lowest class. We talk about this when you learn about leprosy in the Bible. They pushed the lepers all out of lepers all out of town, and they have to live in their own little commune of death and skinlessness. Okay, and it's you don't go. You say hi from afar if you have a loved one, very very afar, right? And then, of course, we learned Jesus went in, touched, healed, was like, I'm not scared of y'all. I have power over sickness. Yeah. Right? When you talk about it in the Bible. But India's still doing the same thing. They're kind of going, you have leprosy. You need to be, unless you are in the higher class and keeping it secret, it changes your class in India.
And it's hard to keep that sort of thing of secret. And of course, it's also dangerous. So all of that to say, there are untold number of risks. We're only 3 years into this, 2 years really into this, and we do not know where all of this is going to go. We don't know how far it's going to go. So my question is what happens to people who are pushing back on this? Well, all we have to do is go back and look at the Canadian convoy. Do y'all remember that?
Oh man, yeah.
They froze their bank accounts. They deployed the military on them, and basically they destroyed their lives. They labeled them and branded them as terrorists for simply saying, let us out of our homes, let us go back to work. We do not want to take this vaccine. Your potentials, your side effects are not worth what I consider to be a very extreme flu. I do not want to make that trade-off, and I think that that's their right. They have the right to say that.
Yeah, I have a buddy I work with. He's a real good friend, and he was like, "I ain't getting the vaccine." And man, let me tell you, pitchforks came out of my liberal company. They're evil, right? And he goes, "Here, whoa." He goes, "Calm down, be kind, rewind." He goes, "I have a heart condition." Mm-hmm. He goes, and we don't know what it will do to people with this heart condition. And now we look and go, it can cause heart issues. So he's real glad he didn't get it, right? Because he's like, but I will tell you, even after saying I have a heart condition, people are like, it's perfectly safe. It's perfectly safe. And he was berated. He got permission to continue to work from home. He was getting, even a medical excuse to not get the vaccine back when it was going to be required by the president. And the company was like, that's not a good enough medical reason. So he had to go with a religious one. And then the whole thing got dropped because Biden can't actually do that. But it was like, even the corporate was like, no, not a good enough reason. Your health is not a good enough reason to not take something for your health.
It's better for you to die because of taking a vaccine
than it is to not take the vaccine
correct.
we want you to take.
So I want to Yeah, that it is, Mr. Producer. So I want to transition this over. Into the apologetic side, because some people are going to say, well, you're an apologetics podcast. You've talked 40 minutes on a political issue. Well, is it truly just political? Because everything is ultimately tied in to your view of morality. So my problem comes down to this. We have a government that is interested in forcing something that's a medical decision upon you. What do you think is going to happen when we go to a blockchain currency? What do you think is going to happen when all of a sudden Christianity is too authoritarian for them, that they're going to have their own authoritarian design, which is truly authoritarian, whereas Christianity is freeing? We as Christians, when we see something like this is from the chair of theology, we see them developing not only an alternate truth, but ultimately a hierarchy, a structure that supersedes God. And the reason I say that is because one of the most important things, the most important thing to God in this universe, I'm going to make a bold statement, the most important thing to God in this universe, as evidenced by his actions throughout creation and through the Bible and up to today, is free will. as long as it doesn't interfere. I'm not talking about self-actualization. That's different. I'm talking about your free will, your autonomy within your God-given natural rights. God values that more than your mortal soul. And they're creating a structure where they can say, no, I am going to choose what you will like, what you will dislike, what you will eat, what you will not eat, where you will go, what you will do, what you will put into your body, and more importantly, what you will worship. And right now, this is a proxy war for that. And it's going to start to get more hot.
100%. Because it's all about control. And if they can control this, then they can control whether you sing in church. Remember when that whole thing came down? You can go to church, but you can't sing because it spreads the germs too much.
They arrested a pastor in Canada for that.
Yeah.
They drug him out in front of the congregation.
So that's where we talk about the government's then stepping above God. God says worship. God says sing. Well, but my government said I can't. What? Yeah, what?
Well,
when you put it that way, all of a sudden you start to go, you're right. Why does the government now get to display or get to choose how I worship God?
You know, that it talks about in the Bible about how, you know, God places the government in control and that as Christians we should obey that government. But it also has Christians holding the government to an accountability to live and abide by the will of God, which we all know that the government is not doing.
Let's go through that. Let's go through that, because actually Romans 13 lays that out very well.
Right.
So let's go ahead and read that. So let every soul be subject to the higher powers, for there is no power but from God. The powers that are ordained by God. Whoever therefore resisteth the power resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Wilt thou then be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise from the same. For he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou dost that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain, for he is a minister of God, and an avenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. So, wherefore ye must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but for conscience' sake. For this cause ye pay tribute. So going into taxes, render therefore all that they're due. Look, we're laying all that out. And some people would say that you have no right to interfere with the government. And I can see that argument if you're in China, actually. If you're in Iraq or Iran, Afghanistan, I can actually see that argument. I don't know if I agree with it fully, but I understand it. From this rubric, we have a set of marching orders from God to walk within the confines of that ruler. But there's a problem. And we've had Deacon on the show before, and he had a way of saying it. It's a really good one. He has the doctrine of the higher magistrate. Because in America, specifically, I'm talking about Americans here, and in the country of America, we have a little bit of a different set of rules that we're playing by. Who leads the country?
God.
Yes, but
the country you living in.
But through, ideally, yes, but through what? Through the actions of the
president.
People.
The people.
Well, people elect. The people elect. And when someone is in bad behavior, even judges, there are remedies. There are remedies that we have, whether it's our vote, whether it is prosecution. There are a number of remedies that we have against members of the government, people that we have elected
the
from
Second
ourselves,
Amendment.
when necessary. But even before that, we can prosecute people. We can prosecute. And by the way, judicial immunity only goes as long and as far as they are acting in good standing. Judicial immunity was never to protect a judge from an unconstitutional act, because the moment that that judge violates his oath or her oath of office, they're no longer a judge in good standing, and that has to be adjudicated before a different court. That has to be brought up. Did this judge act within the Constitution or not? That has to be brought in. But you know what we don't see? We don't see very many people prosecuting that. I've seen that happen. Guess what? It is amazing to watch judges resign when they have been acting in bad faith and in bad conscience. You can do that. You know what we can do? We can vote people out.
Yep.
It's getting harder and harder with the elections as they are, but that's another topic for another time.
Yeah.
Vote, people, vote.
It doesn't even matter to vote. We've got to be there at the voting booth.
Vote the way I want, people. Vote.
We got to be counting the votes.
And
double count your vote. Wait, no, don't.
That's what they do. Anyway, go ahead, Steve.
Sometimes that doesn't matter that you're there to count the votes. I mean,
if they throw you out like the TCF Center.
It's.
What we need is muscular Christianity.
Muscular Christianity. I like that.
We need Christians who are willing
Swole
to
for
stand.
the Savior.
Yeah. Savior swole. Swole
Savior
for the Savior.
swole. Yeah.
So we need to be prepared to take the knocks. Because you look at our brothers and sisters in Afghanistan and in Iraq and Iran, and it's all of a sudden becomes a lot easier. In China, it becomes a lot easier to say, I can take some destitution, I can take some prosecution, as long as I'm acting within the confines of the law and of ethics and morality. If someone's prosecuting me unjustly, that's the least I can do for the cross. Right?
Persecution is becoming so much more in the United States. It's just absurd, and it's coming in small amounts, and it's just things that go on in your own personal life. It's like me being thrown off my deer lease. I've talked to all of y'all about that incident, because I would talk about, I have people talk to me about verses in the Bible because they knew I was a Christian, and I would pray over the food that we would have, that we would eat. And, the guy that ran our deer lease didn't care for that too much. And, because what they like to do, a bunch of them like to do, was hang around up there and, just get drunk as could be. And, I've been sober for over 20 years, and I didn't do that.
Darkness doesn't like the light, and that's a micro scale of the macro, what we're about to see happen in our country. And look, we're not going to stop Revelation in the end times, and it looks like that might be getting nearer than it is further. However, a good story to take note of is the story of King Josiah in 2 Kings, where you see at the end of the life of the nation of Israel, or Judah specifically, you had one good king who had a revival, sparked a revival. He changed a generation for God, and he bought a little bit more time in a dying world. We can do the same today. We can be the spark. Should God be so willing to use us in that way, we can be the tool in God's hand to spark a new revival in this generation. And I think that would be something worth fighting for. So, wrapping thoughts for the day, share philosophy.
Our philosophy first is we need to be Christians first. You're not a vaccinated Christian. You're not an unvaccinated Christian. You're not a Christian against, you can be Christian against the vaccine mandate, or a Christian for the vaccine mandate, right? But you got to put Christian first. You got to put God first. Don't put the government first, right? Don't listen to the government above God. Okay? Don't listen to your coworkers above God. It's got to be God first. And that has to be the philosophy with whatever mandate it is. Personal opinion, I believe that the Bible says you don't get to mandate somebody's health. That's between them, God, and the doctor. Right? And I think that is the government overstepping. I believe this to be the government overreaching. I come from Seattle. We used to call our governor Emperor Inslee, because he held on to that emergency control for he recently let it go. Okay, recently, like 6 months ago now. But that's like 2.5, 3 years of holding on to emergency power when he didn't really need it. He kept coming up with a reason, right? The government is reaching, and they're going to overstep and try to take God down a notch. And that's not going to work well, because God's not going to go down a notch. And we need to be fighting on God's side.
Amen. Steve, final thoughts?
Yeah. As far as culturally goes, you know what you was talking about earlier. I agree with you about the times in Revelation. I believe also that we're approaching them more and more and getting closer and closer. We're seeing things that are happening, that are going on, and don't be afraid to be persecuted as a Christian. It's going to happen, and I think it's going to happen more and more. And the thing is that reach out and reach as many people as you can and try to bring them to Christ. That is the thing to do. Don't be afraid to talk about God. Don't be afraid to talk about Jesus. Do it. If that's what you're called to do, do it. I was called to come to a church and called to God. Man, I'll tell you what, I have not slowed down, and I do it. Been persecuted a few times. Hey, man, doesn't matter to me. I'm still pushing on. I'll still go for it. Doesn't matter, man. And I think Murray's he, looks like he's been kind of persecuted. He's, I don't know what happened to him, but he's.
Yeah,
all I can say is he's been bone quiet.
I was saying he's been deadly quiet. I don't think he has the guts to really speak up.
I don't think so either.
Nobody knows his opinion.
He's had a good time, and
he and I will never see eye to eye.
That was humorous.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, final thoughts for the day from the chair of theology. Dear beloved viewer, just remember something. It's not about the vaccine. It's not about who's in office. Really, it comes down to you. What are you doing today? Who are you serving today? Are you serving Christ? Or are you really just pleasing yourself? And what I mean by that is sometimes it's easier to be comfortable. Sometimes it's easier to just go with the flow, to do the thing that feels safest or easiest. Maybe you do think that we should have a vaccine mandate, and maybe that brings some comfort. Maybe that's something that it's a stability in the crazy post-pandemic world. Maybe it seems like that would be more healthy. Or maybe you have a friend who believes that. Well, let me ask you the question. At the end of the day, are you doing God's will? Are you giving people their right, their basic human rights, their basic God-given freedom? God values freedom more than anything else. If I could summarize everything I said earlier about free will and about volitional will, freedom. God values freedom.
Amen.
More than your mortal soul. Are you giving those people freedom, or are you taking people's freedom? Not talking about self-actualization. Again, I'm not saying people there's freedom and then there's your self-actualization. Taking that aside, I'm not talking about self-actualization. Their right to choose what they are going to do. Are you taking that away? And at the end of the day, are you doing that with the butt of a government gun or the barrel of a government gun? Is that who you wish to be going forward? Or do you wish to be the person fighting that? Who are you? and whom do you serve? If you like this podcast, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for over 200,000 downloads on the audio. Guys,
right.
that is just such a wonderful thing. We are flattered and honored that you guys do listen to us. YouTube, it's the strangest thing. It just, the views are the views, whatever. Don't care anymore. But Rumble is slowly growing, and we are on the Twitter at Further Every Day. Tweet us there, or the X app, whatever they call it now. I don't get it. Elon, you're a mad genius. I'm waiting to see what you do, but anyway, that's weird. All right. With that said, we love you so much. Bye. They can't see you're waving, Mr. Steve. Okay. All right. If you're still on here, you are a super listener, or we did put you to sleep. Going around the room here, what is your favorite Fauci villainy moment? Like in his villain arc. Bruh. What is your favorite moment in his villain arc?
I think, my favorite moment, I replay this in my head time after time. Oh, it's beautiful. The double masking. Man, when he goes, one mask ain't enough, home dogs. He's like, you double mask. It's twice the protection. It's efficient enough. This is going to cut down on what gets through after months and months of being like, masks stop 99.99% of Lysol germs or whatever he says. Right? Things like double mask up. And not a month later, he goes, yeah, that was just to make people feel more comfortable. It didn't change anything. I'm sitting here like, boy,
it's just common sense.
Right?
Yeah, it's like, shut up.
And then people are still like, but Fauci walks on water because there are germs in the water and he's above the germs.
And he couldn't even throw the freaking ball at the game. He's just going.
I think that he talked about not having receiving money and not having patents when it's come out that he does, and he's received millions of dollars from this. Absolute millions.
My favorite moment in his villain arc is when it came out that he I don't like that this happened at all. This is the worst, one of the worst things, other than potentially allegedly releasing a bioweapon upon the world. He's still out and about after being found out that he fed beagles' faces to flies, and he's still around. Yeah. You haven't heard about this?
You didn't hear about that?
He did. So he did studies how long it would take flies to eat the face off a beagle. Yeah, and he would. Unacceptable! No, like it was legitimately one of the most horrific things. The guy's a sociopath, and he's still walking around.
So, out of curiosity,
did that happen to Murray's face?
If we already know the answer, I kind of want to know.
You'll have to look that up.
I'm not going to lie. I'm not saying let's test it and verify it. But if we already know.
Yeah. I remember reading that. That was.
It just turned my stomach.
While they were still alive.
And this son of a. Yeah, anyway, he's still alive and still walking around.
No, the beagles were alive when they were doing that.
I know. So this guy's still alive and walking around after everything he's done to humanity.
Hot dog.
He literally said he's not walking. He literally said that he's not doing gain-of-function research. And on the same day he said that to Congress and Senate, he was asking about gain-of-function research to his colleagues. And it was all, all in government emails. Everyone knew what they were doing. But anyway, with that said, tell us your favorite or most despicable Fauci moment in the comment section down below. We love you so much. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.